experiences because by tonight, I'll definitely be dead. I have no money, I have no home, and the drugs I rely on for relief have run out. Once my last hit burns out of my system and I've got my story down, I'm going to jump out the window of this office building to the shitty, piss-stained alleyway below. No, I'm not a coward, I'm not weak, I'm not just any junkie. Once you understand what happened to me a year ago, you know exactly why I needed those drugs. And why now I need to die.
The cargo transport I hitched a ride on took the route it did specifically to avoid pirates. It was a rarely used route, and all that was out there was some sea planet completely covered in deep ocean. So with all those precautions we took, it was just our shit luck that we fell foul of a small raider ship. We never stood a chance. The ship got pummeled and they boarded us. I barely got away with my life. Thankfully, they were so focused on tackling our ship for its cargo, taking their precious prize, that they didn't notice me fleeing in an escape pod towards the planet below. Of my dozen or so shipmates, only I had escaped capture. Or death. I had plenty of food and water, and while I am to this day a poor navigator, I did know how to stretch my supplies. What I couldn't handle was the isolation of having escaped alone. All I could do was wait. And wait I did. Must have been a week or two, maybe a month, that my pod floated above that planet in a steady but decaying orbit. To pass the time, I spent most of it sleeping. That's when it all happened. I woke up to find myself passed out on this misty, flat wasteland that expanded as far as I could see, with my escape pod seemingly having crashed nearby. There were no trees, no mountains, no cities, no oceans. No ocean! It's nothing but this unending plain as far as I could see. Although I was alone, nothing moved. Something about this landscape was oppressive. This weird little fear grew in me. I took cover in the escape pod for a while and thought about how the hell this was possible. I was orbiting a water world. No landmasses had ever been surveyed. My already crumbling mind rationalized it, saying that perhaps some volcanic upheaval had brought the ocean floor to the surface, land that had for perhaps millions of years been hidden under fathoms of ocean. The new land must have been huge. I cannot hear the ocean, try as I might. The ground outside seemed solid enough to walk on safely. In my state of despair, I made perhaps the worst decision I have ever made and ever will make. I decided to pack my supplies onto my back and go on an overland journey in search of help, of the ocean, of something. Anything seemed better than sitting in that damn bucket. For days, God knows how many, I walked. And walked. And walked some more. I followed the sun as it sank into distance and rose behind me, judging myself to be going east towards what soon looked like some kind of mountains in the distance, the only real feature I could make out ahead of me. I finally reached it after what was probably days of non-stop walking. I was too exhausted to climb, so I passed out in its shadow. I can't tell you what I was dreaming of. I've long since blocked it out, but I sat bolt upright that night in a cold sweat drenching me in my suit. Whatever it was, I no longer needed or wanted to sleep. It was a lot cooler out now, so I decided from now on to travel at night. Although there was no moon out, it was easily bright enough to proceed safely. Packing up, I began to climb. That fear that tickled the back of my brain grew even more the higher I got, but never before as much as when I got to the top. Ahead of me was a huge valley surrounding an enormous peak, a mountain jutting out of a pit that, in my deluded state, I worried even the sun would not illuminate it. It felt like I'd come to the edge of the world. After looking around, the pit's sides weren't as steep as I thought, so I began to climb down towards the central edifice. Driven by what, I can only guess. I scrambled down the rocks like a man possessed, aware of only thing that I must keep moving. I got to the bottom and steadily scaled the central mountain. I was a moth drawn to flame. Something in me just had to know what was at the very top. Just as I reached the final summits, finally I took control of my body again and looked up, and my stomach dropped into my boots. It's just a rock, I told myself. It's just a big rock. It's just a rock. But the longer I looked at it under that sky that glowed with no moon, I knew this was no rock. I realized in horror that I was looking upon the craftsmanship of some unknown, terrible race long gone. I was looking at something incredibly old, a gargantuan monolith carved by impossible hands attached to creatures that I could only hope were long since dead. Awestruck, I must have stood there for hours, reflecting on this grotesque image before me. Suddenly, I saw it. It leaned out from behind the monolith, not a sound to mark its movements. It was vast, gargantuan, a monster of nightmares. It stared down at me with enormous eyes set in a hideous head, and let out a roar that shattered the last of the sanity I would ever have in my life. I don't know how I managed to run away from there, climbing my way back out. I don't know how I got back over the mountains, across the plain, or even how I found my way back to my escape pod. I remember laughing a lot, and singing a lot. I seem to remember some storm happening after I returned to the pod. A great crashing of thunder and lightning. Suddenly something jostled the pod so hard and so suddenly, I hit my head and lost consciousness. When I came back to my senses, I was in the medical bay of some civilian transport that had picked up my pod's distress call. They said they found me locked in my escape pod, floating in the water of that endless ocean planet. Not so much as a small island in sight. No one I talked to has listened to me when I told them of the mysterious landmass on that damn planet, or about the monolith, and least of all that impossible horrid beast that looked down on me like a child looks at an ant or a magnifying glass. I once talked to some archaeologist who made an offhand comment about some ancient Philistine god in the sea called Dagon. Seemed like a fitting name. That's what I've called the thing since then. After all, might as well give it a name, since
Almost every night I've seen that damn thing stalking me in the streets, looking me in the windows, watching me no matter where I am. I wouldn't leave my room for days, not until it kicked me out. To exist with having seen this thing is a never-ending nightmare. And now that I've gotten this all out, it's time that I've ended it once and for all. This is not the last who will see of Dagon and his kind, my fellow men, believe me. You see, I think these things are everywhere, at the bottom of every ocean, on every world, writhing about in the darkness, worshipping their stone idols and waiting for that day when they'll rise up and drag each and every one of us down with them. That day when a more exhausted and spent humanity cannot even lift a finger in its own defense. That day when all the land will sink into the seas, and they'll rule over all as they once did. God help us all, if he exists. God, the power's been out for hours. So dark out. That sound. The drums are gone. I can sense it. It's here. It's here. They're here.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the short film, the first one in quite a while, you may or may not notice. If you don't want to hear me jaw on, you're done with the video, you can go ahead and click somewhere else. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to catch up with you guys, especially since I won't have a lot of time to do it tomorrow. Just to kind of catch you up on what's been going on. So obviously I disappeared for a while, and that was because my PC died. My PC of 3 years, finally the power supply gave out and it killed almost everything on there. I nearly lost the hard drive. And it took me, and I was in a rough financial spot for a while. We moved. Back in April, we moved house, so, and then there was all this other stuff going on, so money was kind of tight for a while. And finally, I put around some money to get. I actually found a really good deal on a PC that was a lot stronger than the one I had before. And as you can tell by the quality of the footage used in the short film, it can record much smoother, much higher quality stuff. This is probably the first video that I've ever used 1080p footage, and it's been actually really cool. Like editing that in HitFilm and seeing how much the quality stands out, and hopefully it shows to you guys as well. And other than that, I've just been going to school. For about a year now, I've been working a pizza job for the most part, and I think you guys know I was working at a tech job on the side, but ownership recently changed, and now it's got the resources to where I can move it from being a part-time job to a full-time job, and it's going to give me a much more consistent schedule, better pay, and I can learn a lot more than actually advance a career instead of, what all can I do at a pizza joint that I haven't already done? I mean, it was kind of rough turning my notice because I got really used to the people around there, and I liked working with them, but you gotta move on to better things. And other than that, still attending school. I did some theater for a while, and I recently got back from a trip out of state, which was quite an adventure for me. I mean, those of you who know me, I'm pretty quiet, stay-at-home guy. So heading down to New Mexico on my own was quite a bit of an adventure for me, but it was a lot of fun. And of course, as you can tell, I'm back now, and I didn't realize how much I would miss doing film until finally I was presented with the Halloween deadline. And of course, for a couple of years, I've always done a short film for Halloween. And obviously, by the time I had the PC, it was already October. And I had another project lined up, actually. And it will come later. Now, I really do want this project that I had planned to come out. But obviously, short timing. Voice actors were unavailable. A mod that a guy was working on had to be polished to get to the OCD level of perfection that I wanted it to be. And I mean, I don't know if this film was as good as it could have been. Maybe it could have been better with a little more time. but I think it turned out pretty good for having been out of practice for 7 months. You guys let me know what you think down below. And obviously it's Lovecraftian. It's a direct, almost a straight adaptation of the short story by the same name. And I don't know, I thought it was actually kind of a cool idea to give it a sci-fi twist. And there are other Lovecraft projects in the future. And well, that's really it. And of course, there will be more stuff in the future. One of my reasons that I'm switching to this other job is to have a more consistent time and hopefully more time to work on stuff like this while still making as much, if not more, money. And I mean, because you gotta make money. I mean, what is it like? John Keating, Robin Williams' character in Dead Poets Society says, like, we need math, we need science, we need medicine, we need all this to live, to survive, but we live for art, music, poetry, and in my case, film, and working in horror films. So you gotta find a balance somewhere. Anyway, happy Halloween, guys. It's good seeing you guys again. Hit me up in the comments below or wherever. I'm definitely glad to be hopefully hearing from you guys soon, and let me know what you think of my first work in a little while. And like I said, we look forward to many more. Take care, guys. See you next time.